The state of Maryland is very resistant of that. I started my career when I was 52 years old and had 2 grandkids, and every time I got up in front of you and had a chance to talk about my lovely wife, we'll be celebrating 49 years of marriage. And we've gone from 2 grandkids to 10. I love my kids, but I really love my grandkids. There's one issue that no one touched on. So I'm going to leave a final question for you. What is the most important constitutional amendment that's on the ballot that you will have an opportunity to vote yes or no to? Asia, do you know what it is? Recreational cannabis. Use the right term. The General Assembly has said we want the citizens to opine on whether or not we should have recreational cannabis. Now, they haven't given us a lot of this structure and the detail. We don't know if it's going to be at the CVS or the Giant or through the dispensaries, which we currently have. I'm a big advocate for medical cannabis. I was a strong advocate. I voted yes in favor of it all the time. I'm a strong opponent to recreational marijuana cannabis. Do your homework, form your opinion. When you go to the polls, you'll have an opportunity to express it. So ladies and gentlemen, it's been a real honor. Mrs. Lynch, thank you for your never-ending support, and it's been a real pleasure. Thanks a lot.
That would be a funny one. We're not allowed to talk about that.
Has worked very hard because he's taken off 65 pounds.
Only medical cannabis is legal. It's decriminalized under like 100 grams or something like that.
Segment, and Bill Breeden's going to sit up here, and we're going to have one more introduction because we had
Big Bo. That's that boy Bo Diddley. Bo Jackson. No, yeah, so marijuana here is decriminalized to a certain extent, and it's also medically available with the doctor's certification. But yes, this is...
Very short right.
What are they telling us to get out for 2 minutes?
You have 2 minutes to walk around.
Oh, okay, all right.
Get off
good.
my butt.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Let some blood flow in the legs there for a minute. Let some blood flow in the legs. No, it's not over. They're about to ask all of our questions. So I thought we were able to ask our questions, but instead we just wrote the questions down for them to ask. So somebody's going to come in, ask all of our questions to the senators and the delegates and stuff like that. Real deal, Holyfield. I need some of that flocka. I need some of that flocka for the security guard over there at City Hall. He's real big into that shit. But yeah, cigarette time. I haven't smoked a cigarette since August of 2014, so no cigarettes for me. But yeah, let's yeah, I don't know how that's okay either, but everybody wrote all their questions down on paper, and then my man Bo Diddley is going to ask all of the questions to all of the senators and stuff like that. So
yeah, I'm aware of some of that.
they'll do it that way. Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Squeeze my butt cheeks outside for a second. You go, bro. Squeeze my booty on outside. Catch some fresh air. I think the battery to my little vaporizer died anyway. No, it's not a nicotine-based vaporizer, so don't sit there and be like, oh, you do smoke. I don't. There's no nicotine in it. Thank you, Scal. I love you too, brother. Yeah, I didn't really like how we had to write it down because the question was written from my perspective. It was about like, it was about how they feel about police accountability, and then it's about my case tomorrow and how they feel about that situation. But if somebody else asks it, it kind of defeats a lot of the purpose there, doesn't it? Well, hopefully whoever asks it with proper emphasis on the things that I tried to emphasize on, and yeah, hopefully they will answer it properly. This is the guy that was just speaking a few minutes ago. He's funny as hell. I think they said his last name was O'Reilly. He's funny as shit though. Oh no, I 100% smoke the medical cannabis. Yeah, don't get that twisted. I wasn't trying to say that I don't smoke medical cannabis. I 100% do. I blow that shit down. But I have a legal certification for it, so. Excuse me. Now, are other people leaving? Are these other seats available? If so, I'm gonna plop my ass right down on that front seat. With the white card. All right, cool.
We're gonna move into our Q&A section, moderated by myself. I'm Bo Breeden, Cape St. Clair president.
Bo Diddley. We'll get right up front.
Before we get into it, though, I'd like to recognize candidates of the down ballot offices that are here. I see Maureen Carr-York, running for Judge of the York Court. You just stand up.
I'm the current judge, and this is Judge Nancy Phelps, also the current judge. I'm the chief judge.
Are there additional running for orphans? I'm sorry. Are there additional judges running?
I'm on that Dream Queen at the moment, Leonardo.
I'm also running for Judge of the Orphans Court. Happy to chat with you if you have questions or anything like that. Thank you all for being here today.
This is our current county executive. This guy right here is doing good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Mark Knapp. I'm also running to be a judge of the.
Yeah, let me go check
Any other judges that I don't recognize? Sheriff, I saw the sheriff was here at one point. Behind us. Sheriff Kim Frederick, how are you?
I was sitting next to the sheriff the whole time. That's so funny.
Do you know if your opponent is here? He's not.
That was so funny.
Poyer?
Scott Poyer, running for re-election to clerk of the circuit court. Thank you folks for having us out tonight.
Candidate here?
Yes.
Okay.
Terry Gilliland, running for clerk of the court. Good to see you all.
What up, Terry?
Any others? Register of wills, anybody with the register of wills? No? Okay. Great. Thank you all. We're going to do this with questions directed at each of you. There won't be a lot of back and forth between candidates. We have a lot of questions that were turned in the last hour. I tried to pick one for everybody. If I don't get to you, we are trying to leave here by 9 to get to the meet and greet. I apologize in advance.
Oh,
You will have 2 minutes to
they might
answer
not
your
even
question.
ask my questions.
So just like when you actually testify. Right? I've done it enough. 2 minutes is long, yet not long enough. So this will be 2 minutes, and George here will be in charge of the flipping of the colors to show you how much time you have to go. And I will cut you off when it comes time.
Can you let us know what the flipping of the colors means? Is that?
The same thing before. I don't know if you color coordinated or not.
Like 1 minute?
Yeah, fill in 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Cool.
very good. So I'm going to start. So I'm going to start with the question for the for Congress, Ms. Morgan.
I don't know if I can zoom in.
That's going to be moved around. So across the nation, we are facing more restrictive laws on reproductive choices. What is your stance on access to abortion care and contraception, and what will you do to support your stance?
Well, first of all, I'll say I suppose that was easy. My opponent has now left. But my stance on the issue of abortion, I'm an attorney, so of course there's the legal stance, but I think what we're mostly interested in as human beings is how do you feel about a woman's right to reproductive choice, and how do you feel about the current rights that a woman may or may not have. It is a complicated, it is complicated. I think as much as we don't want it to be, and as much as people say that, well, you either are for choice or you're not for choice, or you're pro-life or you're not pro-life, that's not the case. I actually felt very strongly about this and recently wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post. It was published by the Washington Post, and it's up on my website now. I have 2 small children. I carried them both. I remember waking up one night in the middle of the night with what felt like a broken rib, and it was actually my my baby. I was 7 months old, 7 months pregnant, and she, I thought she was going to be a soccer player. She almost broke my rib. So I remember their kicks. I remember their hiccups. I remember what it felt like to carry them. But I also know what it was like to hear the stories of women who were in situations that they found themselves in with little to no help. And the reality is that in this country, we have, I believe in limited government. I'm a Republican because I believe in limited government. I believe that we can protect life. I believe that we can support women by making more access, better access to adoption and to foster care, improving the foster care system. When we talk about the foster care system, most of us have a very Oliver Twist type of mentality about what the system looks like. I do believe that we should support women. I don't believe that it's the government's decision to be made. And I believe that we can both support women and love women regardless of what decision they make. And I urge us to have a more realistic stance on that. It's not a decision in which I think most people have an extreme view, and that's where the political parties are. I urge you to please read my op-ed in the Washington Post. I explain my position, I think, in that article, and I made it public because I think it's important for you to know how I feel.
Next question will go to County Executive Pitt. Anne Arundel County Public Schools are currently in the bottom half of most statewide rankings. Serena Park and Broadneck High School are not particularly well ranked in the state districts. Given that Property Valley has a strong connection to school quality, how will your financial policies going forward be able to increase the quality of schools?
So I agree that property values and desirability and the economy of the jurisdiction are probably more impacted by the quality of schools than any other thing. Our schools are considered good. Our county is really a desirable place. The market is booming. I mean, housing prices are through the roof. But our schools are not good enough. And you know, the data has not been shown much in recent years, but I met with Dr. Bedell, a new superintendent who came in. And of course, he's not wedded to the past. He's the new guy, and he's thinking outside the box. And he's going to start showing you all the data. And it's not pretty. Some of that is a result of the difficulties of COVID and coming out of it and the trauma of that. But we can do better in our county. We've invested heavily, 500 new teachers, and paid the back steps, which improve morale. We're doing the full capital budget, so we've got a lot of new schools and a lot of new facilities. But the new superintendent and I have talked a lot since he came in, and you're going to be hearing some things that are wonderful. You heard about how the teachers are no longer going to have to do these daily updates of what they're doing on software rather than teaching kids. We may get rid of that system altogether. I think we're going to see ourselves getting back to funding teachers, funding classrooms, and focusing on letting teachers actually teach kids. And that's been part of the problem. We have a bureaucracy in our school system that is getting in the way of teaching.
This question is for Senator Elford.
Please speak up so we can hear you in the back.
What are you doing to help the communities who will be negatively impacted by the New Bay Bridge that will be part of your district?
Thank you so much for this question. There is no silver bullet policy solution to any challenge that our communities face. But this particular problem is a doozy. While I don't represent currently the Bay Bridge, I represent a whole lot of stretch of Route 50 and a lot of communities just like here on the peninsula that are impacted when it's frankly a Friday morning at this point in the summertime, or God forbid power line goes down. We're a district of peninsulas, so this is quite a problem. So I appreciate the need and the governor's stance that we need a third span of the Bay Bridge. I disagree that this is the right place to do it, for a lot of reasons. We don't have the infrastructure. We talked a lot about infrastructure tonight. We don't have the infrastructure on either side of the Bay Bridge, and I work very closely. Bipartisanship to me means I work very closely with and have a strong relationship with my colleagues across the aisle, including Senator Steve Hershey, who represents Queen Anne's County. They don't have the infrastructure on that side of the bridge to deal with it either. The Eastern Shore counties have the ability in law to veto Bay Bridge crossing. I sponsored a bill this term to add Anne Arundel County to that list because we should have a say just like the Eastern Shore counties have a say. Third span, yes. Here, no. But I would like to get more creative and think more outside of the box than just a third span. We should get back to thinking about ferries. We should get back to thinking about where traffic is coming from and where it is going, and ensure that our communities are not bearing the brunt of not just the traffic from across the state, but traffic from across the region. So I'm looking forward to working with our next governor. I'm looking forward to working with our federal partners to find a more creative solution than a third span right here. Thank
This question goes to Billy Saab, who's running for District 33 Senator. You are seeking to move from the House to the Senate. What single piece of legislation did you introduce, not co-sponsor or vote, that you're most proud of, and did it cut wasteful spending, cut taxes on families, or ensure small businesses can grow and prosper as you promised in your current campaign?
Thank you for the question. I've sponsored many legislation, specifically to legislation that would help small business. I had a legislation this year that would cut the $300 that businesses have to pay when they file for their LLC, and it's annual. Unfortunately, there was 3 competing bills, and none of these bills passed. This is something that didn't pass. But on the other hand, I reached across the aisle and worked with Delegate Henson, and we were able to cut we were able to team up on one bill, and we cut the business property tax. Well, no, we reduced the business property tax from $2,500 to $25,000. So businesses, small businesses, instead of having to pay taxes on their pencils and the basic things with the computers, they have $25,000 that they don't have. Was it $25,000? Yeah, we wanted more, but we ended up, this is what politics. Sometimes when 2 people leave a little unhappy, it's a good deal, and we were able to, we wanted more, but we settled for this, and hopefully when we come back next year, we'll keep pushing for more relief, business relief. Thank you.
This will go to Delegate Hare, who is running for county executive. Councilwoman, I apologize. Councilwoman Hare, who's running for county executive. I apologize. We got upgraded. Your website says you have worked hard to pass legislation that lowers tax burdens, eliminates unfounded regulations, and improves the quality of life for residents. What specific legislation have you introduced in your tenure on the county council that addresses the issues you would like to address as a county executive?
Sure. So on those 3 points, on the reduction of taxes and fees to reduce cost of living, I was the lead sponsor on a successful bill to offer a property tax credit for service-disabled veterans. I am very proud of the fact that that passed unanimously. I was also the lead sponsor on a bill to eliminate the fee for our public safety officers when they apply for a property tax credit. Believe it or not, in this county before that, if you were a police or a firefighter and you went to go apply for your property tax credit, the county actually charged you a fee to do it. So I was able to get rid of that fee. I got a unanimous vote on that. On the next one on quality infrastructure, I had a series of bills actually to help folks with failing septic systems, to incentivize them to convert to public sewer, because it's a very expensive issue. It also it's kind of a double issue, because nitrogen pollution from failing septic systems is the third leading cause of nitrogen pollution in the bay. So helping these folks clean up the septic system is a huge boon to the quality of life. On the business side, I have been the lead sponsor on bills to help our small businesses thrive. Our farmers in particular, they make up a huge portion of District 7, had a lot of trouble selling their produce directly to residents because of red tape at the county. So I was the lead sponsor on a bill to help remove that red tape. I've also co-sponsored bills on the development side of things to make sure that notice is being given and that our developers have to record the meetings that they're in, not just provide meeting minutes, so that we're actually getting an accurate count of what went down in any community meeting. So I'm proud of all of those. Like I said, I've passed more legislation on a bipartisan basis than any other council member at the council. I'm happy to talk about any of those individually if you've got any questions on them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This question is for candidate Ratham. You had mentioned during your introduction you were looking to reduce retirement taxes here in the state of Maryland. How do you plan to address that if you're elected?
So, thanks for the question. And as you all know, I'm a candidate, I'm not elected, so I don't go through the whole legislative process and all that yet. I'm new coming into this. So with that, I would work with my fellow legislators across the aisle and come up with a solution that works best for our community and the community that we're representing. We need to come up with something because I'm very surprised that all of you are here tonight that are retired because it's very expensive to live here. So we need to come up with something soon. I know the governor started working on it and also in the last sessions, but we need to improve that.
This is for you. Thank you. This is also regarding sort of the Bay Bridge or the Bay Bridge and its issues. What can you do at the state level before a new bridge is built to address traffic issues now?
Oh, gosh. Can I just say whatever Senator Alfred said? Copy and paste right here. Look, I think everybody knows this is a stressor. I mean, everybody knows that this is impact. I mean, I live, down in Severna Park, and I know this, that the impact of the traffic congestion, but I'm not here in the communities right here, and I know it's paralyzing. I know that the traffic is paralyzing. I think ultimately working with the State Highway Administration to look at ways to, whether it's widening roads, I know there's recent work on the access roads that are running alongside up to the Bay Bridge. What are the ways that we can do to prevent people that, follow ways on their GPS and are cutting through people's communities and their neighborhoods and speeding through within the neighborhood, risk of that health and safety of kids and elderly and others in the community. But there's got to be a solution ultimately, and I think working, as I mentioned, with the State Highway Administration and other partners to identify what are the ways that we could do to control the flow, so that way people aren't using our neighborhoods to cut through. Thank you for the question.
Next question for candidate Niemeyer. If elected, do we need to move it?
Yeah, I'll look it up. We got it.
Yeah. If elected, what would you do to support experienced, qualified teachers to stop the mass exodus from our county due to the history of disrespect, unfair compensation, and work over?
Thank you for the question. This is a very, very simple fix, but it's a very, very complicated problem and complicated to actually make work. It's simply a pay issue. We have people that desperately want to teach here. Well, we've got more pay in Prince George's County, in Howard County, and all of our surrounding counties. Why, if I'm living on the borders of Anne Arundel County, would I teach here when I can go make $20,000 more by just going over to Howard County? We need to bring our budgets up to a level that gets our teachers to stay here. We're never going to be able to get Dr. Vidal's plans in place if our teachers are mass exiting from the area. We have to support them not just by getting the dollars into the classroom, but getting the dollars into their pockets, working with those unions, strengthening their benefits, making this place the most attractive place for any teacher to come and work. We want to be more competitive than the other counties. And that's across the board. That's with teachers, firefighters, police. We want people to live here, work here, and stay here. Thank you.
for Delegate Henson. And this could be to any of you, but not all questions directed to one person. I'm just trying to get to everybody. But what will be done to restore various special funds, such as transportation or open space, to necessary levels at the state to protect our future communities?
So thank you for the question, Bo, and thank you for directing it to me, being on the Appropriations Committee. This is something that we are tackling every day. For the 90 days of session, the budget is our #1 priority. Making sure that our special funds are fully funded and adequate to meet the needs is the #1 priority for us. You identified the Open Space Fund, the Transportation Trust Fund. Those have dedicated purposes in our budget, and if those funds are not adequately funded, we can't meet the needs of those dedicated purposes. So making sure that we have provisions, which are commonly called lockbox provisions. We just tackled that with our open space funding to make sure that we weren't continuing to borrow from that pool of money, but we were continuing to build on the great work that Senator Elfreth did and our colleague in the House, Delegate Eric Lukey, to make sure that our public parks were fully funded. And the open space budget is a critical part of that. Looking at our Transportation Trust Fund, it has a similar feature where we are reinvesting in our roads, bridges, all that infrastructure work that we're talking about with the Bay Bridge and making sure that we're meeting those critical needs. So when it comes to our special funds, the goal is to make sure that we are not tempted to take from one to put in another subject, but making sure that our general fund is adequately funded so that we're not tempted to dip into our special funds. Thank you.
Going back to county council here, and this is for Councilwoman Amanda Bieber. Overdevelopment is a major concern. What is one of your plans if re-elected to a second term to minimize development and its impact on our schools?
Thank you. That is a wonderful question. I've worked a lot on development with legislation that I have introduced. I actually voted against a piece of legislation that the county executive triumphed through the Democratic majority on the council that allows for high density development in R5, which that's essentially all that we have left here in District 5 for low-income workforce housing. And it wasn't about low-income or workforce, it was about the high-density development because we know what our infrastructure is like here. I have worked tirelessly on legislation that keeps you in the know, because what was happening in the past is that a development application would come in and communities in the area had no idea. They didn't know that there was a development coming until there were shovels in the ground and bulldozers ready to come. That's why I introduced multiple pieces of legislation, as I mentioned, that give you more notification. The developers are now required to give you multiple times that they notify you along the process. And in doing that, it's actually changed development plans and developments that have been put in for application. They've changed because of your input. And it's critical that we continue to involve you in the process. I will continue to support reasonable, balanced growth that doesn't overburden our infrastructure. And I will continue to oppose high-density development because that is what I committed to you 4 years ago. I upheld my commitment to you, and I'll continue that commitment. And if you have any interest in learning what I think would keep teachers here, it differs a little bit from Mr. Niemeyer. See me after the discussion. Thank you.
This is for candidate Gillespie. Your website says you want to support quality education and parental choice. Can you define what you mean by parental choice, and since budgets and policies for schools are set at the county level, what will you do as a member of the House of Delegates to support these objectives?
Absolutely, I think this is a great question. Like I talked about earlier, there are a lot of issues and concerns within our school. As far as parental choice specifically on my website, parents need to know what is going on in our children's classrooms. We need to be able to partner with our schools. We need to know and be able to be involved in our children's day-to-day lives. We need to see curriculum if there are questions. Right now, we don't have access to that. My daughter does not bring home books. She doesn't bring home papers. What she brings home is a Chromebook. And in order to really know what is going on in the schools, I have to somehow navigate that thing when I have no idea how that's set up or how to utilize it. And some of the things on there are very concerning. So again, parental rights is huge as far as parental choice, having a say in our children's education, and really being able to advocate for them and be a part of the process. As far as what I would do legislatively, I did support Senator Simon Mayer's legislation that would allow parents to, if there was a concerning curriculum that was going on in our schools, to go through a formal process to be able to have a part and a say in that legislation. I think there are other ways that we can also go about and do that. But the one thing too that we haven't talked about tonight, teachers need more than just funding in the schools. Teachers need support, and I believe strongly in our teachers. I believe they are the key, our wonderful teachers are the key to my children and their success in the classroom, and to everybody else's children and their success here on the peninsula. And it goes beyond funding. We need to do more for the teachers, and that is something I also want to do at the state level. I've supported bringing teachers into the process, adding a teacher member of the board who will be able to vote as well, and be a part of the decision-making process with how to really look at the problems in our school and give a voice from the inside, people who know it and are the experts. Thank you.
This question is for Delegate Jones. We're going to pass the mic down.
Yep, thank you.
Make some recording better.
Thanks.
Delegate Jones. Hey guys. Working with the state legislature, what do you propose to help fund the state employee retirement fund, which is under 100% funded?
Well, thanks so much for the question. I have to say that in this past 2 years, we have done a tremendous amount for the state employees. We also, we bargained for better health care, drug costs. Another thing that I think is important and hasn't been touched on tonight, and I really want to make sure that we talk about, is the expanded child care grants that affect not only state workers, but also everyone in this room who are parents. We passed 5 different bills in order to help expand child care, because after the pandemic, one thing that we saw is affecting so many is the inability to find child care. I, as a mother, understood that completely. Long lines, the inability to find a place at any child care facility. So those grant programs that we passed really helped families and child care facilities, and thereby small businesses who own those child care facilities, get back up and running. That got teachers back to school, that got healthcare workers the ability to take those shifts that we desperately needed them to do. So there's many different things that we did, but I'm glad for the question. I'm so happy that you asked that question. Thank you so very much.
Yep. Thank you. The only person I don't believe I've asked a question to is to Delegate that I know at this moment. This question, what is your view on the Second Amendment and the rights of Marylanders to carry, given the Supreme Court recent decision?
Thank you very much for the question. I think it's a really important conversation we're having right now. I have been supportive of the right to bear arms, but also supportive with limitations. We have a very real crisis right now of gun violence. 2/3 of suicides two-thirds of suicide are with gun violence. And with the Supreme Court decision, we are really challenged with where concealed carry is appropriate. Do we want guns in the hands of people who shouldn't have them? Do we want guns in environments where there are where alcohol is available, where there are children, where we are in big public spaces? I think it's really important that we find that balance with honoring the right to bear arms and honoring the right for people to feel safe in shared spaces. So my commitment is to look at how we find that balance to make sure that we are honoring that right, which is a constitutional right, but also making sure that people aren't feeling unsafe because they're concerned that there are guns around them or guns in the wrong hands. Thank you.
home here. Well, for the county executive position. What are your plans to expand public access to water within the county if elected?
Sure, this is a great question. We are blessed in Anne Arundel County with more than 500 miles of shoreline, but it is a real challenge for folks to be able to access that. I think there are some simple things that we can do to help improve access currently. I also think we need to make leaps and bounds improvements with access for ADA compliance. We have a big backlog of ADA compliance issues in the county and our parks and recreation overall, and we need to tackle that as a really #1 priority issue for accessibility in the parks. But other issues that we can do, simply, a lot of the signage could be improved around some of the parks. It's difficult to get to. I went for a hike with some folks at Valentine Creek the other day, and there's no real space to park. You kind of have to go through a neighborhood in one of the areas to get to it. So we could put some better signage that would allow folks to know, hey, by the way, you can walk down here and get a beautiful view of the water if that's what you're looking for. There are simple fixes like that I think we can do immediately, and then we need to be really targeted about where we spend our dollars in any other development or acquisition, and be very careful about it. But the ADA accessibility is absolutely #1. We need to do that first and make some simple fixes otherwise. Thank you.
This is for county executive. County workers are currently working both in office and remotely, depending on their departments. What are your plans to make the government more responsive and effective going forward in your second term?
Well, I have had to crack down a few times. And I think one department where it got really bad last summer, probably 2 months ago, was inspections and permits. And I believe there was a culture there in which they didn't feel like the customer was their customer. And that happens in a bureaucracy, it happens often, and this is nothing new in any administration, but I had to send a letter out to everybody who worked there and said, look, these are the customers, and you have to figure out a way to provide good service to these customers. And I think COVID was one of the reasons that people had slacked off. And so technology is making it easier to do good customer service in some ways, and I'm watching and getting reports on how each department is improving that. I mean, it took us a year and a half with a contractor to finally get to the point where you could pay your tax bill and your water bill and your sewer bill online. And it meant transferring everything in finance over to this new system, and it's just been launched in the last couple of weeks. In land use, the land use navigators, and all electronic system, it's just been set up in IMP. Now we're moving it over to OPC so that it improves customer service. Once people learn how to use it, once the contractors learn how to use it as well. And so part of it is modernizing. The issue of whether people should be in the office or be allowed to work at home, there's a labor market issue, and we struggle with this all the time. I was talking to my chief of staff today about it, that there are people that she knows can get 2 hours more work, and we can monitor because we know watch the documents they're working on. It's all very easy to manage electronically. So it's been positive in some ways to have some folks do that, and I think we can retain them better if they do. So we're allowing each department to have some flexibility and not sending from above exactly how many hours you have to be in the office depending on the job. So we have a lot of opportunities to improve efficiency of government in a lot of ways, and I get reports, I'll see it, and focuses all that, I get reports on the progress of each one regularly.
Thank you. This is a very specific one to Delegate Henson. Have you helped sponsor bills with the YWCA in your time on softball? It's one of the only ones addressed to a person.
Right here. So I love the YWCA. My first job out of law school, I got to work for the YWCA representing survivors of domestic violence. I got to hold their hand in the courtroom, in the hallway, and help them get peace and protective orders, help them get custody of their children, use and possession of homes, vehicles, all the tools and resources they would need to be safe and break free from domestic violence. So coming into the House of Delegates, being able to sponsor legislative bond initiatives, which is where we're able to take care of our projects in the capital budget to help the YWCA with the center that they have now will be a safe house for survivors of human trafficking. So this is regionally a really special opportunity because we don't have this resource anyplace else in the region. If you have broken free of human trafficking and you found yourself free of that situation, how are you gonna start your life over again? Where will you go? Where will you live? How will you stay free of that situation? Now the YWCA has an answer to that question, and I was able to work with my colleagues in District 30A to provide the resources for that center to make it safe, to make it regional here, and to make it someplace that we can all be really proud of. Thank you.
This is a question for Congress. We're getting close. A couple more. So this is for a candidate, Morgan, sorry. Yep. Will you support or sponsor bills, if elected, to lower taxes on retirees through the federal system? So basically, federal pension system, would you vote to lower taxes on them?
It's an interesting question because I think it's one that is probably more local than it is at the federal level. I am an estate planning attorney. I did litigation before, but now I do estate planning and probate and a lot of wills. The number one question that I get asked from people who do their wills is this will still valid in Florida? Is it still valid in Pennsylvania? You know why they ask me that? Because it's a lot of grandparents and a lot of retirees who plan to leave the state once they're able to, and they want to know if the will that they just purchased is going to be valid because they can't afford to live in this state anymore. Yes, I do believe that, especially when it comes to our senior citizens, especially when it comes to people who are not using a lot of the resources or schools and things like that, but are providing a huge benefit. And let's be honest, the way that we treat our citizens in this country, our senior citizens, it's shameful. Senior citizens are some of the most critical people in our entire community. They are people that have wisdom, people who have the capability of continuing our family, our commitment to family in our strong generations. But both at the state level and at the federal level, I think we've done a huge disservice by not recognizing that when a person retires, there is a limited amount of income there, and that there is a significant amount of burden when we continue to increase the cost of living. Not only will I do it at the federal level, but I'll also come back here and work at home because I'll stand up for you, not just in DC, but I'll do it here at home. So when our legislators, many of whom you have heard from today, maybe don't take the care that we should when it comes to lowering the tax burden for those who are retired and those senior citizens who are on a fixed income, I will fight for you. I'll do it not just in DC, but I'll do it here at home because we're community members and we're neighbors together.
My phone's on 9%.
So it's 9 o'clock, 9:01. Stop now, respect everybody's time, to get to meet and greet, food and drinks, mingle with the crowd.
Oh,
I
they're not
wanna
gonna
thank
ask
all
my
of you
question.
personally. One, welcome to Cape St. Clair.
Yeah, they're not gonna ask my
It's the greatest
question.
place you can live. Two, thank you all for coming and keeping it a very civil
Yeah, they're not
discussion
gonna ask my
tonight
question.
and educated discussion. I think everybody's gonna leave here having learned something, and I applaud you all for taking the time to run and give up family time now and in the future when you're elected. If elected, I guess is a better word. And I just want to thank you on behalf of Cape St. Clair, Broadneck Council, and Arnold Preservation. But I'll turn it over to Pat and Mr. Peterson.
I'll say in 1 minute. Give me just a minute, I'll say it.
Just raise your hand so that we all know who you are. I also have an announcement to make that relates to those of you who are worried about the Bay Bridge, which is all of us, but there are 3 of us on the Broadneck Council who are members of the Bay Bridge Reconstruction Advisory Group. The vice chair is Barbara Hitchens there. She's been a member of the BRAG since it started. And Peter Bradley, back there in the green shirt, and I are members, and I've been with them for over 10 years. The good news is I have spent more of my life trying to fight and try to make all the wrong things right through the Bay Bridge. It ain't gonna happen. I will invite all of you to come here on October 12th. I have the Chief District Engineer for State Highways coming to speak on the update as to the results of the pilot that was run on Oceanic Drive the first 2 weeks in August. And she'll also talk about what we're gonna do about the service roads. Do not expect silver bullets. We are going to be locked in this traffic for probably another 15, and that's scientific test us, 15 years. And you can ask Kim Tran, that's her name, she's excellent. Please, 7 o'clock, come to join us. I want a crowd because I need state highways to know how important this is. And there are lots of issues. I'm not going to go into that now, but please come. Okay? I have to add one more thing. There is we're talking about a third bridge. We fought that for so long. What State Highways is saying now, and MDTA, is they are going to replace the old 52 two-lane bridge that's 20 years over its lifespan, and it has to be replaced. The challenge for us is, it would be nice to keep that third bridge for pedestrians and walkers. We want it taken down. We want to live with only 2 bridges, and once the 52 lane is replaced with a new 6 or 8 lane span, then we want to get rid of the old bridge so that we can adjust and limit our approach roads, because that's going to be decimating for many of the communities in this area. So we will revert to 2 bridges, but it will take time. So, all right, everybody grab some refreshments.
So I will step outside and I'll let y'all know what my questions were, and then I'll step back inside for the meet and greet. My phone is going to die. I'm on probably about 7% right now, so if it does die or it just like randomly cuts off, that's why. But yeah, let me step outside and I'll let y'all know my question real quick. So, my question was, do you support, I wish they had left like a copy of it. I was upset that I didn't get to ask the question myself either. That kind of really like pissed me off. But it basically was like, do you support a citizen's right to hold public officials and public servants accountable for their behavior? And if so, what will you do for the people that are being oppressed and arrested while trying to do that? If they did answer, yes to the first one, that was what I was going to ask, was the second one. And then whatever they answered the second one, I was going to make it personal and let them know that I had a case tomorrow involving a police officer arresting me for trying to file a complaint on his department and his officers. So what were they going to do about that, since they just told me that they support the, citizens' right to hold them accountable? But they didn't ask the questions, and I didn't get to ask them myself, so that's kind of how we got here. Yep.
Looks like your foot's bothering you. Yeah? No?
It's not like a speak up and say something situation. I can't just sit here and speak over the entire room full of people. It wasn't that type of situation. It's not like it was like a county